Welcome to the Roy Morgan Weekly Update. Today we're looking at unemployment, real unemployment, inflation expectations and consumer confidence. Real unemployment is up in June to 10.3%. That's up 1.9 percentage points. Inflation expectations are up this week to 5.9%. That's up 0.4%. Consumer confidence is also up this week, up 2.5 points to 74.9, but still well below 80. Support for the ALP is strong on a two-party preferred basis at 57% to the coalition on 43%, but government confidence is down. Now, support for the government is typically strong when there's international unrest. And the Fair Work wage increase from July 1 also gives comfort against cost of living increases to those people on awards. As you probably know, the Fair Work Commission has announced the minimum wage will increase by 8.6%, impacting around 200,000 people, and minimum award wages will increase by 5.7%, impacting around 2.7 million workers from July 1. The increase in real unemployment in June, as well as the spike in inflation expectations, means the Reserve Bank must think very carefully before increasing interest rates again next month. If we look now at last month, in May, we saw the indicators were moving positively. Real unemployment was down to 8.4%, and inflation expectations were down to 5.2%. This came after the only break in the last 14 months when the Reserve Bank did not increase interest rates in April. So there were no bank increases coming through in May. So inflation expectations. Inflation expectations increased 0.4 percentage points to 5.9% this week and are now at their highest for over 3 months since mid-March. So Australians now expect annual inflation to be 5.9% over each of the next 2 years. Inflation expectations have now increased significantly since May, when the measure averaged only 5.2% for the month. The two-party preferred support for the government is unchanged this week, with the Albanese government on 57% on a two-party preferred basis, well ahead of the coalition on 43%. However, government confidence, whether people think the country's going in the right direction or the wrong direction, was down 3 points to 83.5. Now, 50.5% of Australians say the country's heading in the wrong direction, and only 34% say it's heading in the right direction. And consumers continue to struggle. Consumer confidence, the ANZ Roy Morgan Consumer Confidence, was up 2.5 points to 74.9. That's the first increase since mid-May. It's also the largest increase in the weekly index since the first week of January. However, it's still a really low number, and consumer confidence has now spent 17 weeks below 80 and 3 weeks below the mark of 75. The longest period at this level since the early days of the pandemic in 2020. Consumer confidence by housing status that we've been tracking showed some divergence this week, with the metric diving for people paying off their homes, down 1.5 points to 68.5, but increasing for homeowners, up by 5.3 points to 77.9, and increasing for renters, up 2.3 points to 76.6. All eyes of people paying off their homes will be on the next week's Reserve Bank board meeting and whether the Reserve Bank will increase interest rates again for a 13th time in just over a year. And now turning to the latest figures on Australia's employment. Real unemployment is up in June, up 1.9% to 10.3%, reversing a series of recent drops. And this is the highest unemployment has been since January. Underemployment was down by 0.5 percentage points to 9.3% in June, With fewer people employed part-time in June, presumably the part-time and casual employees looking for more work became unemployed. Overall though, this means a large rise in the combined unemployment and underemployment, up 1.4 percentage points to 19.6% of the workforce. Almost 20% of the workforce are unemployed or underemployed. Almost 3 million Australians. Again, this was the highest combined figure since January. These monthly movements, though, take place within the broader context of longer-term trends in the Australian workforce. The total number of people employed or looking for work. The Australian workforce has grown rapidly over the last year, and the annual increase in the working-aged Australian population hit a record in the year to June 2023, up by 632,000 to 21.9 million. So this is a population growth story. The surge in the population helped drive the workforce up by 715,000 to over 15.2 million, the second largest annual increase on record. And these large increases mean that employment growth has continued over the last year, despite the falls we see in the month of June. Overall, employment is up by 268,000 from a year ago to over 13.6 million. Full-time employment's up by 61,000. Part-time employment has grown by 207,000. However, despite the growth in jobs, the number of unemployed Australians has grown much faster. And the loss of jobs in June means unemployment and underemployment have both surged compared to a year ago. So if the trends seen in June continue, these numbers will continue to worsen over the next few months as the Australian economy deals with the continuing challenges of high inflation and rising interest rates, and both business confidence and consumer confidence remain at very weak levels. Regardless of the CPI, due to be reported tomorrow, the Reserve Bank really must think carefully before increasing interest rates again this July. And that's a wrap for this week. Subscribe to our Roy Morgan YouTube channel. It's free for all the latest political, economic and market research data and insights. Thanks for listening today, and I look forward to bringing you the latest data on inflation expectations, consumer confidence, business confidence and voting intentions next week. Take care, and we'll see you next Tuesday.